It's time we can start our webinar today. My name is Eddie Wang, Director of Trendlines China office. Sitting beside me is Mr. Qiang, who is the General Manager of the Putuo Smart City, and Mr. Xiao Guangwei, who is the VP of the Putuo China-Israel Innovation Hub, and Mr. Tony Low, who is the CEO of the Trendlines Medical Shanghai. I also like to introduce some of the key speakers join us remotely. Mr. Todd Dollinger, who is the CEO and the chairman of the Trendline Group, and Mr. Brock Singer, he's the general manager of the Trendlines incubator in Israel. And our keynote speaker for today is from the Tigermed-Jyton, Mr. Peng Yifei, he's joining us from his office. And I also like to thank for participants who join us online from Israel, Singapore, UK, and other countries. Welcome. I'm sure the Decoding China's NMPA used to be called the CFDA from China's experts angle of view will be interesting topic to any overseas medical device company. First of all, I'd like to invite Mr. Todd Dollinger, the chairman of Trendline Group, to give an opening speech for today. Thank you.
Eddie, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our friends all around the world joining us today for this presentation and the discussion of China's medical device regulatory system. With us today are our friends from the Putuo district of Shanghai and our partners at Tigermed. And we're here today because China and the Chinese medical device industry are important to all of us. We're here because the three countries where Trendlines has offices, Israel, Singapore, and China, have long and strong relationships with one another and are substantial business partners. And yet, there is much more that we can do together if we understand each other better. To achieve this means working with the right partners in an atmosphere of continuous change and continuous learning. And certainly, China's regulatory system has continued to change, to continue to evolve. China is important to Trendlines. There was a time when those of us in the medical device industry were nearly fully focused on US and European markets. But for Trendlines, it changed many years ago. For instance, Trendlines and 15 of our portfolio companies actually have Chinese investors helping to tie us to the Chinese economy. And Tigermed, our partner today, is actually one of the investors in Trendlines, having invested in us before we became a publicly traded company. And the Putuo district is one of our partners, working with us to build up China's medical device industry for Trendlines, for our portfolio companies, and for all of China. It's quite an adventure, and we're thrilled to have the right partners to help us in China and beyond. In addition to our partnerships in the US and Europe, we're very active in Japan and of course in China. And these are the world's 4 largest medical device industry markets: Europe, the US, Japan, and of course China. But it's China that's the fastest growing of these markets for reasons good and bad. Unfortunately, chronic disease in China, obesity, diabetes, are growing fast. Fortunately, the Chinese government and industry are working hard to build the infrastructure, the required services, and the necessary support to serve the great needs of China and beyond. But success in the China market requires not just understanding the size of the market, but market needs, including product development and product localization issues. And to that end, our Putuo-based Trendlines Medical Shanghai works in partnership with our Trendlines Innovation Labs offices in Israel and Singapore to invent and develop medical devices for China-based companies. And Trendlines Medical Shanghai supports Trendlines Israel and Singapore-based companies in China in all aspects of their business in China, advising them, working with them, helping to develop their businesses. For more on working with Trendlines Medical Shanghai, be in contact with us, whether our China office, Singapore, or in Israel. And we want to thank Eddie and Tony and everyone for organizing what we believe is a very important program for our Trendlines companies and for our friends around the world. And as well, my thanks to our friends in Putuo and at Tigermed for their friendship and support. In a moment, Eddie will introduce our speakers today, and you'll learn about the Putuo district of Shanghai, where our Trendlines Medical Shanghai offices are located, from Tigermed, about the NMPA, China's medical device regulatory agency. And just a quick word about Tigermed. As mentioned, Trendlines has a long relationship with Tigermed. They invested in Trendlines before our IPO nearly 6 years ago. And even before they acquired Jyton, Tigermed's medical device arm. And Tigermed is actually China's first medical device CRO, China's largest medical device CRO, and has completed thousands of medical device registrations. We encourage you to consider them for your regulatory consulting and CRO needs in China. And then, Eddie, to you to introduce our speakers for today. And again, my thanks to all for today's program.
Thanks, Todd. And next, I'd like to introduce the General Manager, Mr. Qiang of the Putuo Smart City, give a brief presentation about China-Israel Innovation Hub in Shanghai. Hello, everyone.
非常高兴能够今天参加这样的一个电视的这样的一个会议。
It's my pleasure to join these webinars.
我这边用几分钟的时间跟大家简单的介绍一下中影上海创新园。
I take a few minutes to give you a brief introduction about China-Israel Innovation Hub.
那个大概是在2016年的时候呢，当时的上海市市长英勇就是说是访问了我们以色列，然后呢就提出是不是能够建设中影创新园。
Our former mayor of Shanghai, Mr. Ying Yong, visited Israel in 2016, and at that time sending a proposal to Israeli government, can we jointly set up a China-Israel Park in Shanghai?
到了18年的10月份的时候，中国的国家副主席王岐山跟当时的以色列的总理内塔尼亚胡就提出，根据新的3年行动计划，要在上海建中影园，然后这个中影园就落户在我们普陀区的桃浦。
And this program has been confirmed by the Vice President, Mr. Wang Qishan of China, and President Netanyahu in 2018. October, and we decide to set up this park in Putuo district.
到了2019年的12月5号，就是说是当时的这个以色列的创新署的主席阿米埃伯派姆和中国的科技部的副部长黄卫，还有上海市的书记李强和上海市当时的市长殷勇。都为我们中影创新园是开园。当时我记得 Todd 先生也出席了我们的开园仪式。
And the senior officials from both China and Israel attending our grand opening in December 5th, 2019. I remembered Mr. Todd Dollinger also attending this grand opening at that time.
上海大家都知道，就是说是中国最大的那个金融城市。科技城市，上海的地位就相当于纽约对于美国，或者说是特拉维夫对于以色列。
I believe everybody probably aware of the position of the Shanghai city is equivalent like Tel Aviv in Israel or Newark in United States. It's the center of the financial and the industry.
我们的中影上海创新园的1期。是建设在一个保留的老厂区里面，目前已经全部投入使用了。
Our park established in the old factory, and all the facilities has been established and has been taken into use.
正好也是跟 Todd 先生汇报一下，目前在我们园区里面的企业已经有59家，然后其中有37家企业是跟以色列是有关系的，实际办公也就有20家单位了。
And by far, and Todd, if you remember, since we opening up, right now we have the 15 companies registered in our park. 37 of them from Israel, and about 20 of them is actually operating in the park actively.
今天中午我们刚刚全部谈完了，就是有一家以色列的企业 Mantis Vision 的在中国的 A 轮的融资的这样的一个工作。
And before I joined this meeting, we just closed investment agreement, helping Israeli company called the Mantis Vision, and to finish his A round in China.
所以我们相信接下来我们跟 Trendlines 的合作会越来越丰富。
So I also expect we can have more such like cooperation with our partner like Trendlines.
Trendlines 是我们园区在生命健康这个领域最重要的合作伙伴。
And consider from the perspective of developing in the life science industry, Trendline is the most important partner for us.
这个是我们的 Trendlines 的一个非常重要的一个
This is a brief history about our relationship with Trendlines.
当时就是我们中国的科技部的副部长在跟 Todd 先生在交流。
In this meeting, you can see the guy communicates that Mr. Todd Dollinger is the Minister of the China's Science and Technology and one of the head of the Innovation Authority from Israel.
这个是今天上午我们谈的另外的一家企业，就是 Mantis Vision。
This is the company I just mentioned who finished the A round under our help.
这个是我们园区能够为入驻的包括以色列在内的各国企业提供的一些服务。
This is the service we can provide to not only Israeli company but also the overseas company who has a willingness to set up their entity in our park and developing Chinese market.
包括我们有基金，我们有那个财力的支持和税收的支持、研发的支持等等。
We have a different kind of support, including the investment capital and the grant for R&D, and also deductive for the tax.
然后今天上午我们在跟那个上海市的商务委和药监局在谈一件事情，我还没来得及跟娄总汇报这件事情。我们现在争取上海市药监局有关那个生物医药这项工作，能够在我们园区里面设一个工作站。
Actually, just branding new news is I just finished a meeting with the Shanghai CFDA authority, and they like to set up the front office in our park to giving the first-hand support to the overseas company who want to register the medical device or pharmaceutical products from our park.
如果这个办公室成立的话，那么我们就会更好的为园区里面包括 Trendlines 在内的，包括我们泰格在内的各个企业提供服务了。
I believe if such like a service office is open up in our park, we can giving more in-hand support for our partner like Trendline.
这个是我们普陀区包括上海市把生命健康产业是作为一个支柱产业，所以我们也出了很多各种各样的政策。我们是希望这些政策的话呢，能够企业能够看得见，能够用得到。
In Putuo district, the life science industry is our pillar development industry. So this we setting up a bundle of the incentive policy to support the startups in medical device from medical device industry.
然后呢，跟 Todd 先生再汇报一下，我们现在成立了一个以色列科技文化沙龙，几乎每个月以色列驻上海总领馆都会在我们这边搞活动，而且 Todd 先生下次再来上海的话，上海最好吃的 kosher 就在我们这里。
I like to invite Todd next time visit us. Right now we have the Israeli salon and holding monthly, and I also want to tell you, right now we have the best kosher restaurant in our park.
期待在不久的将来我们又能够见面。
I hope that after the COVID is finished, that we can meet soon. Thanks.
谢谢。
Thank you. Okay, I think next for today's program, our keynote speaker, Mr. Peng Yifei, and who is in full charge of the medical device related service of the Tigermed. He has successfully holding the management position in Chinese and overseas company involving in biomedical R&D and production, pharmaceutical products investment, medical device registration, clinical trials of drugs and medical device. Based on years' experience in preclinical and clinical CRO, he has a profound understanding of the medical product transformation, as well as clinical trial management in registration and medical device in China. So Mr. Peng Yifei, stage is yours.
Thank you. And thank CRIH and Trendlines for holding this wonderful event, and I truly appreciate this opportunity to introduce the basic profile of, and mainly the process of how we can register a medical device in China. I will just share my screen. Okay. Okay, so I have 45 minutes, so I'm trying to talk more information in this timeline. First, 3 slides to introduce what we do as a Tigermed-Jyton. Tigermed-Jyton is a fully owned subsidiary of Tigermed, which is listed in both China and Hong Kong. Currently, the whole group has more than global existence. We have staff more than 6,000 employees all over the world. We are the device business unit of Tigermed. We are providing full services for medical device related projects. And currently we are covering, well, the basic Great China area, and we have our global existence in East Asia, Southeast Asia, Australia, Europe, and the US, covering the major markets of medical device. We're providing full life cycle services for medical device. Basically, in China, we are able to do all the consulting and the CRO related service for our clients until they got the authorities' approval for the medical device products. This page is just to show the general numbers of our project experiences. As you can see that we have, well, through the years, about 20 years, we got more than 5,300 licenses, market approval of medical device from NMPA, previously called CFDA. And we have also lots of projects of clinical operations, including both device and RVDs. Our team also including data management and biostatistics team and medical affairs team, including providing services like protocol writing, report writing, clinical evaluation report writing, etc. We also be able to provide quality system consulting like GMP services. Okay, today's topic is try to use a few minutes to generally introduce the system of China medical device regulatory system. So what is the definition of medical device in China? In our regulation, we have one regulation big law talking about how to regulate, supervise, control the medical device. And in China, the medical device, including device, the equipments, and also the in vitro diagnostics, In the NMPA Technical Review Center, we call the Center for Medical Device Evaluation. They have groups of evaluators or reviewers to review all the technical documents. Currently, they are also divided into several departments. There is 2 departments, especially reviewing IVD projects. However, talking about IVDs, here in China, we are right now only talking about the reagent, those reagents, not including the devices or equipment to do the testings. For those equipments, they are also classified into the medical devices. But they're together, these equipments and the IVDs all are regarded as medical device. The general way of controlling regulation of medical device is classification of the devices. And in general, according to the risks, there are 3 levels of or classes of medical device, 1, 2, and 3. This is very similar to EU. However, we don't have 2A or 2B, just class 1, 2, 3. For class 1, it is very low risk medical devices such as, well, like masks. These only has to be go into a very simple filing process for both domestic and imported medical device. But for class 2 and class 3 medical devices, they should go through a registration process, including several steps, including like model testing, like clinical trial, and the later technical review and the registration process. For all imported medical device will be reviewed and approved by the central NMPA or the state NMPA that's located in Beijing. For domestic products, class 1 and 2 domestic class medical device will be reviewed and approved by the provincial FDA, such as Shanghai Municipal FDA. So if an overseas company would like to register the class 2 products, and they would like to have, like, for example, Shanghai FDA to approve it, you may consider to move the production here to Shanghai or collaborate with a local partner to set up a local entity in Shanghai and then produce your product here. And then this class 2 product will be reviewed and approved by the local provincial level FDA. The general steps for class 2 and 3 devices are like the following. We need to go first step called model testing. That's a registration test for the device itself. It's basically quite very much like a QC test according to national standards or industrial standards, to do some testings to demonstrate that the product is qualified according to all the quality standards or specifications client claimed. And then you might need to do a clinical trial. Whether or not a trial is needed, we will talk about later. And with the trial results plus the testing report plus the R&D work and laboratory validation data and process data, quality control data, stability data, everything together compile into a package, then you submit to the authority. CMD or the Provincial Medical Device Review Center will do the technical review. And later, if the technical review is positive, NMPA, the administration, department will do the final approval. For class 3 devices, the technical review result is very important. It's basically this conclusion will, in general, will conclude the final results, yes or no, to approve it. This is more detailed steps. You can find this long page in NMPA website. That's in Chinese, I think. So we will review here. But that's not so important to say you should be familiar with every step. You can find your China partners, and actually there's also, when you submit the project to NMPA, there's also an online process to show that which stage is currently your project is. So talk a little bit about the model testings. The model testing, the frequent asked question is like, where should this testing be done? And for example, for an overseas company, I have done all the testings in other countries. Will that be enough? How many devices shall be used in this testing, etc., etc.? Well, in general, the testing should be done in China qualified testing institutes. There are 10 major big state-owned testing labs. However, the recent published medical device regulation allows also the third-party laboratories to do the testings for the registration. And we understand that for lots of overseas products, there will be already some testing reports in place from other qualified global standards laboratories such as UL, SGS, TUV, etc. And some of these reports can also be accepted by the testing institutes in China. But whether all these reports will be accepted or just a part of these reports can be recognized, this will be decided by the testing institute itself. So there will be communication works to do. You can provide your overseas testing results and reports, and to see how many of them can be recognized by the testing institutes. And the output of the testing is, you will get, one is the testing reports, it's a past reports. The other, the testing institute will give you we call it pre-evaluation reports, technical evaluation reports. This report will be also used during the registration process. Another one is we call the product technical requirement document. So this document is more like a testing standards and methods document. Also, this document will be submitted to NMPA. After the testing reports, then we should decide whether a clinical trial, local clinical trial, is needed for the final registration. First, we can refer to an exemption list from NMPA. There are already 3 batches of lists released from NMPA talking about the exemption, trial exemption. The total amount of the products is approximately more than 1,400, and most of them, majority of them are class 2. There are also class 3 devices. We can look through the lists and to see if our products description, intended use, are same as those products are described in this list. If that is the case, the trial can be waived. However, if it is not in the exemption list, there is still another route to talking about not doing China local trial for the final registration that we call the clinical evaluation report solution. This solution, there is no 100% guarantee that it will be approved by the NMPA. That's possible that NMPA, after they review the CER, they still say, okay, we disagree. We don't think the current data or evidence are enough for us to do the approval. So they will still ask you to do a local trial. That's very possible. However, there will also very much depending on the experiences of you and your China partner's judgment. However, to do the CR routes, the cost itself is not so high. It's basically to compile reports and to collect information, public information such as literatures from other companies' products, such as your product, your trial, especially clinical trial data in other countries, no matter it is a full-scale registration trial, pivotal registration trial, phase 3 trial, or it's just a investigator-initiated trial, post-market trial, or even just product complaints you collected from the post-market data. The more data, the better, of course, to do the analysis for the report. So in general, if the product, this kind of product, there are already this kind of products approved in China, and not like just a single one, there may be already quite some of it, or it's a next generation of your own product, and your previous generation product has quite a lot of data, and they also with registration trial data in China already for the previous generation. Then you change some feature, you update some module, or even change some raw material that's possible to for the next generation, well, or even just the UI, the interface change. That's also probable. So that's also fine. You can try to in this CR, you try to demonstrate the equivalence of these two generations, and to analyze the difference of these two generations to demonstrate their effectiveness, safety. That might be approved. So if there's no data to analyze at all, or there's not enough data to demonstrate the equivalence, then a local clinical trial will be needed. These are some of the major related regulation in China related to the device, especially the clinical trial of device. No worry, these Chinese characters here is just to ensure that these are the exact name of the regulation. I have an English translation for the next slides. Most of these regulations, I think there is no official English version. So if you want to find the article or the regulation, you should first find the original Chinese version. Then there are some translated version, but most of them are not from the NMPA. Okay, so major requirements or standards regulation of medical device trial here. I just have some lists. This is very important ones. We have if we're going to conduct a clinical trial of medical device in China, there is a China device GCP to follow. The authority NMPA for class 3 devices they will basically randomly select 2 batches, 20 or more projects each year to now to do the inspections. From the provincial level, there are even more inspections from provincial level. I can understand that for overseas medical device studies, we usually use ICH GCP or ISO 14155 standards. But these standards are also recognized, yes, but in China studies, first you have to follow the China device GCP. Before the device trial starts in China, for most 99%, probably 99.5% of the devices you don't have to got an approval from the authority. Only some of the devices I listed here in the slides, you can see these are very, very high risk products or new innovative products like implant hearts, like artificial heart valve, new material, absorbing long bow materials, etc., etc. These will be needed to do we call it clinical trial approval. You need to have this approval from NMPA. Other device products clinical trial, once you get the device model testing report, you can just go to the hospital to start your local trial. So there are a few challenges for conducting a local trial in China. As we all know that to conduct a device trial, or well, any actually clinical trial, it's very costly. It's need a lot of resources, including budget, including human resources, including time. It's very big challenge for the sponsor. In China, there's some challenge quite different from other countries. One is the protocol design and confirmation. From the NMPA level or the provincial level, as you can see, we don't have to get an approval to start our device trial. So there is no official channel to talking with the authority also to do a discussion of the trial protocol. That it's not like FDA say, okay, I ask for a meeting or an email communication with FDA to talking about the design of the protocol, and I will submit a list of questions. They will give me feedback, and we will confirm this, and then you just go ahead for the trial. This process, well, currently is not available here in China. Sponsor, well, you just do your design, no matter it's by your own medical science team or through a CRO or other partners. Then you start the trial and finish it, and then you submit the data. And then later, when the authorities start the review and they probably think the design is not good enough, they will challenge the design itself. That's potentially, it's a very big problem. Well, that's the reality here. So it's very much rely on experiences. We understand that there are if you have some business here in China, you already hear lots of about the word relationship or 关系, right? But 关系, yes, relationship is important. However, the scientific rationales is still very important. So that's very much rely on the medical science teams, statisticians, and the experiences of previous projects for the final design. There are some open days from the authority, yes, to communicate the questions, but this communication and discussion will not be regarded as an official answers to your questions. You cannot, in the later submission and the review stage, say, okay, there is one reviewer 2 years ago in the open day answer my question, say that this is doable. That's not the case. Because in the past of few years, there was lots of actually innovations, and the healthcare sector of China industry is booming quite fast. So the whole industry is in short of talents. So lots of talents go to the pharmaceutical industry, and as we all know, that device industry, there's even more vertical segments of different area. So talents is in short. But the whole government, and although we're talking about the difficulties of the protocol discussion, etc., but the regulation itself is evolving quite fast in the past few years. We are seeing the trend that the China regulation or China trying to catch up with the global standards. Well, China now is also join the ICH GCP organizations, and for device sector, China government, China NMPA is quite an active member of the International Regulation Forum, etc. So we are seeing the authority is absorbing and catching up with the global standards. Related to trial that is not controlled by NMPA is the homogeneous resource control in China. This is the regulation from another department of the government, that's technology department. They will need when you're doing a trial, including collecting human genetic samples, and then you need to have this approval from the authority. There will take additional 1 to 2 months to get this approval. And all this information, well, the biosample is very difficult ported to other countries right now. But the information, especially like the testing results, the genetic sequencing results, that possible you will need to have this data transfer to other countries. That's okay. You have to have this approval. Well, we talk about the device GCP in China. This is the current effective device trial GCP. There is one new draft is now open for comments right now. Probably it will be being effective quite soon, maybe in this year. As you can see, IVD is not included device GCP in the previous version, but in the new draft, IVD clinical trial is also included. Now for IVD clinical trial, there is one guideline for IVD trial operations. This device GCP, the requirement is already quite global standard and quite high. Well, today there, because of time limit, I cannot go through every details. We can compare some terminology and requirements. For example, China device GCP and ISO 14155. The general principle is very similar. It's just the only differences in details. For these slides, just to remember one thing is that the clinical trial, device trial, the responsibility will finally be taken by the sponsor itself, not the CRO, not the institutes, not the hospital, not the PIs. The final results, every responsibility will fall on the sponsor from the government point of view. If the product of the project is not by there's some problem, the government will fund the sponsor to solve it, to take more responsibilities, such as the legal ones. But of course, during your agreement with other parties like the hospitals, PIs, CROs, or testing labs, etc., you can then also pursue their responsibility, but government will first fund you. Well, introduce some of the new channels or the good channels for making medical device registration. The first is we call the innovative track. For class 2 and 3 medical device, new in China, there's new technology, you will have patents, and you got these application. You can file this application first to the NMPA. And for class 2 devices, there are also similar channel in most of the provincial level right now. You have got some benefits. The NMPA will assign, the technical center will assign a dedicated project manager to handle your application, and they will also put your product review in priority and save maybe 2 to 3 months during the review stage. Importantly, it's not the timeline actually. It's you will get an official opportunity. Actually, it's three times of the chance to ask for a formal communication meeting. We just talk about we don't have official opportunity to talk with NMPA about your trial design, about your technical questions before submission or during this review stage. Now you have it for innovative medical device if you are granted in this channel. Another channel is called priority channel. This channel is mainly for rare diseases, for the very severe diseases like cancer, or some for use of the vulnerable population group, or a very important project from the government. So you will be granted into this channel. The benefit of this channel is you also got a priority review and shortened timeline of the approval. We're not talking about the emergency approval channels such as currently in the pandemic situation, and this is very routine. I have another 10 minutes. So previously, we just talked about the very routine way of register a medical device in China. Model testing, clinical trial, submission, and technical review, and final approval. So this is very routine as an imported medical device, and for local domestic devices. There are two new strategies to do so. One is we call China Plus strategy. It's a multinational, multi-center clinical trials. Now, the China government, the NMPA, is more and more open to participate the global development of innovative products. So NMPA issued guidelines to accept overseas clinical trial data. And again, it's not 100 guarantees say, okay, as long as you have overseas data, I can just approve you. Not like that. But you can together when you are doing the planning for the clinical development program anyway, consider China in advance. Not say, okay, we will do US first or CE first or UK first, then we talk about China. If you're right now in the planning of doing a clinical trial in the world, and you have the plan to come to China in the future, I would suggest to think about this new strategy at the beginning to add China parts, if possible, into the clinical development strategy, and thinking about if we can do one trial, global multi-regional clinical trial, one trial to fulfill all the requirements for different authorities. So, well, I will not go through the items as we summarize the benefits. Saving actually is the biggest benefits among all. So otherwise you have to finish all overseas clinical trial and got the overseas approval first. For example, got a CE first or got a 510K first, then come to and go through the steps we just talked about. If we use the China Plus strategy, use the multi-regional clinical trial strategy, we can have this trial ongoing in parallel. And actually, you will understand China earlier. Even this trial data cannot be recognized as a local registration trial substitute, but you can still understand how China works, how China market works, how your final clients, those hospital and my principal investigators, how they think about the product. It's totally feasible right now because there is a guideline issue published. There's as a committee process, and all the trial should be done according to, again, the China device GCP. Another strategy is we call it about real world evidence. So this is quite a hot topic in the last 1.5 years in China. We already have some guideline for real world evidence for medical device also published, although it's not very in details, but it's a good sign. And actually there's already successful cases. There's in Hainan, free trained Zoom, CFDA last year approved a product from Elegant using the real world study data as this evidence to get this approval. Our Tigermed-Jyton's estimation is that to go through this data, one is that the company will have some quite sufficient data in other of the clinical trial. I mean, the best is the RCT trials. And then this kind of product is new and can meet the medical needs in China. And then you can use this to Hainan for, we call it the first trial, first use. And then you go through some, it's more like a bridging study. The trial scale is not that as a routine registration trial, and you do some data there using Chinese population, Chinese patients to collect the data to demonstrate its safety and effectiveness. There's one big policy in Hainan is that any devices, well, also drugs, is not approved in China, but already approved in other countries. This kind of products can be allowed to use in Hainan. That's very good policy for Hainan province to support their industry of healthcare. So also use this policy, we can also immediately do a real world study there in Hainan to use population of patients. There is similar policy right now is on the way and trying to be quite similar to as Hainan is the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, we call the Great Bay Area. In this Great Bay Area, trying to copy the policy from Hainan, allow the product that is already approved in other countries but not in China to be just first used in this area to solve the problem of the patient. That's also very good policy. So very soon, the real world study will also be done in this area together with Hainan. Well, for real world study itself, it's of course about only can be done in Hainan or the Great Bay Area. But in these two areas, it will be just starts a new one. For traditionally definition real world study, of course, you can do it anywhere, especially for an already marketed product. If you are going to use post-market study or retrospectively collect the data from the hospital to do the analysis, this is definitely a real world study. Currently, we're just talking about a new product that is never introduced into China. Probably together you can consider these two areas to do a real world study. Okay. Finally, some risks to be noted. This real world study is not it's a strategy for all overseas products. As I just mentioned, if the product already has quite some overseas data, especially very good, well-designed clinical trial data, then probably this route is. And for operation, because real-world study is not a very common kind of trial here, so probably we can have it controlled strictly, but there are still risks in the operation itself. And there are, when we are doing a multi-regional trial strategy, there are still differences in the clinical practice among different countries. So during the protocol design stage, during the monitoring stage, and even the inclusion-exclusion criteria discussion, we should consider this kind of differences. It's very important. When we do all these new strategies, not the conventional imported medical device way, the new strategy, multi-regional trial, real-world study, etc., it's possible that the authority will approve our product, but they will also have this we call conditional approval. That means they will ask you to do some more homework after you got the approval. Probably like they ask you to do another trial or following some kind of guideline to do a post-market study, or ask you to collect some long-term safety data to file another report to them when you are doing the review, etc. Use this conditional approval to do so. That's also very possible. Okay, I think I control the time in 45 minutes, and thank you very much for your kind audience and all your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peng. And the next section is the Q&A section. I'd like to invite my colleague from Israel, Brock, and leading on this section.
So hi everyone, and thank you, Yifei, for a very detailed and excellent presentation. So for the audience, everyone that has question, you can use the Q&A button and ask question, and I will forward the questions to Yifei. So just use your Q&A button to do so. So a first question to Yifei from Tigermed. You touched a bit about provincial level approval, and people are interested what is happening after that. If you get an approval in a province, how can you get it on a national level?
Yes. If as an imported medical device, all the approval will be done, review and approval will be done at the national level. But, oh, okay. If, for example, you're going to set up a local entity, especially to move the production process into China, even you control this local entity in China like 100%, sure, this China entity will be still regarded as a domestic company. The product manufactured from this company will be regarded as a domestic products. So product is class 2, then this product will be reviewed and approved by the provincial level.
Okay, and another question, and maybe that there is different answers to different routes and classification, but people are asking in general, how long does an approval take?
Oh yes, great
question.
Yes. We talk about 3 major steps, right? The first step is type testing. Type testing usually will take 6 months, or even longer if it is very, very new and people never see it and talk about how to do the testings with you a lot. And if there is a trial included, the trial will vary, the timeline of the trial will vary a lot. First is the difficulty of recruit patients, subjects. Then what is the time for the treatment periods and also the follow-up period. Well, maybe for devices in general, the follow-up period is not so long. So I would say the trial itself will need 1 to 2 years. And if the trial will including very long follow-up periods, such as 12 months or 18 months or even longer, the timeline will longer. And then the final approval timeline will be 10 to 12 months, including 1 round of deficiency letter. In total, from scratch, you will need probably 2 to 3 years to have 1 imported device registered. The one thing is, do we need a local trial or not? If we can waive the trial, we will save like 1 to 1.5 years.
Okay. Another question is what are the requirements to be classified as an innovative device? And also, they heard that the IP must be held by the Chinese company for that. Is it true? It must be held, the IP, by a Chinese company?
No, it's okay. You can during the registration stage, before you got the market approval, even you have no one here in China, it's totally fine. Like us, CRO, we can, as your reagent of registration, we can be your reagent of trial. We can do all the submission and the follow-up tasks until you got the license. And if you, until then, you haven't find your local partner for marketing or distribution, we can even act this, but we are not doing sales, of course, we are just a CRO until you find one local partner. Only when you, if you are going to set up a local manufacturing sites, you have to have a big investment here in China. That's one thing. Well, most of overseas company will basically find a local distributor to work with and later ask them to sell the products. Sorry for the first question, sorry.
What is the classification for an innovative device?
Oh, okay. There is a general classification rule. Well, it's based on risks, of course. And there's one guideline talking about how to classify devices into different classes. And because we have tens of thousands of medical devices, so the rule itself is quite rough. For example, it's just talking about whether it's implanted or not implanted, whether it's long-term touching the human body, or it's totally in vitro, it's invasive or non-invasive, etc., etc. It's quite general. There's also another catalog, very detailed catalog. There's also thousands of description, medical device description in this catalog, and talking about different kinds of devices and with their classifications. Usually we will look through this catalog first to find your classification. If it's not in there, we will come to the general rule to make a judgment what. And if we are not sure about it, there's a process in NMPA that is classification process. We can ask the authority to give us any result.
Okay, so we have time for last few questions. One interesting question is coming from another angle. The question is, what about transferring the clinical data outside of China?
Yeah, as we just have a slide talking about the human genetic resource application, first you need that. And well, as Europe, we have GDPR, right? And China actually also has one data protection law published. So for especially the healthcare data is also more sensitive. But as long as you have this approval from the government, the data, the reports, everything is allowed to send out to other countries. And this IP is also yours, not the PIs. Well, not mentioning our CRO. This data is yours. If for example, your especially those investigators in hospitals would like to make publications, they will need your approval. You will have an agreement.
Okay. And another question, when you are using a partner or a distributor to get the regulation on their name, how complicated is it if at some point you need to make a change with the partner?
Well, Tigermed-Jyton is not in the business scope of distribution or sales or market, but yes, we have seen quite a lot of cases. the manufacturer and has some disputes with the distributors, and later the business collaboration goes out, and you need to find a new one. In general, I think the business environment here in China is okay. It's not like a wild west, right? So it's okay. But during the business collaboration, the agreement, just be careful with the articles. And I will have one suggestion is that, for example, if the product is registered through us, like CRO, because CRO, at least like our company, is a third party, more independent position. So we don't have this business interest in the future sales. So you can have this licenses, for example, submission package, data, you can here in third party like us. So if you have some problem distributors, you still have every document and data, which should be yours, but maybe your distributor have this, they are not willing to give you back.
Excellent. So with that, I think we need to move to the closing remarks. So on behalf of Trendlines, I like to thank the speakers today, our partners and friends from Tigermed, from the Putuo district. Thank you for very detailed presentation that I think was right to the point and give a lot of data. It's not an easy subject to navigate through the regulation in China, but I think it helped a lot. I also want to thank our team in Shanghai, to Tony and Eddie that facilitated this call. We at Trendlines are very committed to China. We view it as a crucial medical device sector, and we are always supporting our companies and our friends in Israel in doing more in China via regulation, clinical trials, business development, etc. So our team in Israel and also our Chinese team in Shanghai will be happy to follow up with any other question. And again, thank you very much to the representative from Tigermed and from the Putuo district that spent the time today with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So with that, Eddie, unless you want to add anything, I think we can conclude the session for today. Eddie, you want to add anything, or Tony, on final remarks?
No, it's okay. Thank you for everyone participating in the meetings. I think the Chinese registration is a big topic. We like to holding for the special topic, which is interesting by the overseas company, to organizing such events frequently. So thank you for everyone attending for today. Thank you.
Excellent. So thank you everyone, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.